What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video. Today I wanted to talk some Tanner Engstrand and why I think he's actually done a pretty good job as the New York Jets offensive coordinator. So Tanner Engstrand was in his bag against the Cincinnati Bengals, man. The New York Jets had over 500 yards of offense for the first time since, honestly, the Mike White game against the Bengals in 2021. So it's been a while since the Jets have had 500 yards of offense. And, you know, something that I saw pointed out on Twitter from Coach Dan Casey was Tanner Engstrand showing off something that he learned from Ben Johnson. So I wanted to show the film clips from this. On 4th and 1 with the game on the line, he ran this little play action slip screen to Jeremy Ruckert that worked out perfectly. It ended up being a big gain. And my question for you is, does that remind you of something? Let's go back to Jets-Lions 2022 when Tanner Engstrand was with the Detroit Lions and Ben Johnson was the offensive coordinator. Look at this 4th and 1, same play action, little tight end slip screen, ends up being a touchdown, and the Lions go on to win that game. Taking some influence or showing some influence from one of the best offensive minds in the NFL is a really good sign. Ben Johnson did so well with the Detroit Lions that he got the job with the Chicago Bears as the head coach, and the guy who was kind of chosen to fix Caleb Williams. And look, I get it. The Bengals defense is an abomination. Nobody's going to want to give the Jets any credit after a game like that when you consider the opponent, but it doesn't make it any better that the Jets were down their two top receivers in Garrett Wilson and Josh Reynolds, and they've been out without their second best running back in Braylon Allen for a while. I'd argue yes, honestly. And, the Jets offense wasn't really in a spot where they could afford to lose players. And we saw what the offense looked like a week ago without Garrett Wilson against the Carolina Panthers, and it wasn't pretty, but they were able to have a really productive game. Like, did anyone know who Isaiah Williams was before before he was brought into the New York Jets and in the offseason? How about that? Was anyone expecting a Tyler Johnson legacy game this week? He was awesome. So with limited weapons in the passing attack, he was able to scheme up an offense that was honestly pretty impressive. And, credit to Justin Fields, was doing a good job in this game, getting the ball out a little bit quicker, was able to take some shots down the field, was significantly better than how he's looked the previous 2 weeks. And honestly, through the, first 8 weeks of the year, when you look at the numbers, the Jets are second in the NFL in rushing, number 2 in rushing yards, and they're tied for second in yards per attempt running the ball as well. They have an identity. They are a very good run football team. And I get it, the passing yards aren't pretty, but my argument would be that the quarterback situation is the main culprit on why the numbers don't look the way that they are. And I don't know if, this might sound a little bit crazy, I guess, but I have confidence in him building a successful offense for a young quarterback. I think, if you watch the film, it reminds me of something we'll get into in a second where guys are open. It's just the quarterback not being able to go through his progressions and find the open players. And I draw comparisons to Mike LaFleur in 2022. He was scapegoated after this season, and Mike LaFleur was an offensive coordinator who had a lot of success with the Jets with any other quarterback not named Zach Wilson. He had Mike White throwing for a bunch of yards. Josh Johnson threw for a bunch of yards. Joe Flacco threw for a bunch of yards. And unfortunately, because the quarterback was that they drafted second overall wasn't very good, the Jets decided to make a change after the 2022 season, and they brought in Nathaniel Hackett. And, I think if the Jets were to do something similar where, maybe the Jets often, they're bottom of the league team, they win, 2 to 4 games, and the offense is like in the bottom 10 of the NFL. I think, depending on how Woody Johnson feels, he might have all the confidence in the world in the head coach, but would he force his hand to, pressure the coach to make a change at the offensive coordinator position? I would hope no, but that's what they did in 2022. Robert Saleh then has to fire his friend, Mike LaFleur, and they bring in Nathaniel Hackett, and the offense was just absolutely atrocious in 2023 and 2024. So I don't want to see that happen. I'm actually pretty optimistic about Tanner Engstrand through 8 games. And it's, about half a season sample size. And believe me, that it's been up and down. There's been some weeks where it doesn't look very good, but overall, I think he's done an okay job with this Jets team. And I like the direction that this is going. And sure, he still has some things to learn. Like I'd like this, for example, I'd like to get it for him to get away from, the third and short shotgun runs. That's something that I think is maybe my biggest point of frustration with him. I know people were nitpicking the first fourth down play. I don't think that was a play calling issue. I think the quarterback checked out of something. I don't know what the original play call was. I would assume it was a quarterback sneak. But beyond that, I thought he had a really good day against the Bengals in that one. And look, I'd argue that he's far from the biggest problem with the Jets offensively. I think a lot of it is personnel. I think they definitely need more at the wide receiver room, and that's going to be on Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji to continue to address it. And they need to find their long-term answer at quarterback. And if they do that, I think they have the pieces to have a successful offense. And, who knows what they end up doing here with Breece Hall, but like there's a world where you're putting a young quarterback who you take in the first round into a pretty good situation if you retain most of the offensive line. That's been a fine unit. I like what you have in Mason Taylor. I like what you have in Garrett Wilson. You need to add some more there, but you could be in an okay spot if you have, a top 5 rushing team in the NFL, a good number 1 receiver in Garrett Wilson, a good tight end in Mason Taylor, and then you just add a couple more complementary pieces. I think that's a pretty good spot for a young quarterback to come into. Guys, we're brought to you by Sleeper. Think you know football? Then try to turn your football knowledge into real money with the Sleeper app. Just download the Sleeper app and pick more or less on your favorite players with more stats than any other daily fantasy app. You just have to choose 2 or more of your favorite players from pregame, or you could do it live during the game. Pick more or less from their predicted stats that they give you, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money if your picks win. Use promo code O'Leary, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. New offer, there's a free $20 no deposit required promo. Terms and conditions apply. That'll do it for me in this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts on Tanner Engstrand. Once again, I'm Matt O'Leary, and I'll catch you next time.